Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Lynn and today I will be making a split window card which has been very popular of late thanks to the queen of crafting, Jennifer McGuire. I'll link to her tutorial video in the description box below if you want to check out her method of creating this style of card. I think I'll probably, the way I do it is probably a little bit different. I watched enough of her tutorial to get a good gist of how to make this card. It's basically like a book fold card, but there is an aperture that is cut out from right over where that score line is in your book fold. I've got a couple of die sets here from TLC Designs, and I love these frame dies because not only do you have beautiful frames, you have some basic shapes and as well some decorative elements. And I wasn't exactly sure which shape I wanted my aperture to be, so I've die cut an oval and a circle out of plain copy paper, and I'm folding that in half. The reason why I'm doing this is so that I can get a sense for where I want to put that fold line. And that's why I've folded these shapes in half, because you want to basically score the front of your card where the center of your aperture is. And I wasn't exactly sure what focal image I wanted to use. So that was my next step, was to figure out what focal image do I want to use and which shape makes the most sense to sort of frame that. Once I decided on the circle, that's when I gave myself that little tick mark so that I know where to score my card base, the front of my card. And I scored it once from the front just so that I can see the score line, but I scored it from the back because you want this to be a valley fold. And I always fold my score lines as mountain folds because what you're doing when you score is you're stretching the paper, you're softening those paper fibers. And so on, that edge where you've got the indentation of your score line, that paper on that side is already nice and soft and has started to break down. So then when you fold it, it will kind of bend more cleanly, and you'll get less cracking that way. And since the paper fibers are already stretched in that direction, that's going to give you a cleaner finish, because when you fold down like that, the paper does need to stretch over that fold. So I have picked out some pattern papers. These papers came in the Celebrate With Me suite that released not too long ago, but I do believe that these are available for purchase individually as well. And so I've picked out the pattern that I want to have on the left-hand side of that score line and the pattern that I want on the right-hand side. And the way that I'm going to piece these together is that when the two patterns meet up at that score line or at that fold, I don't want there to be any white space except for the score line itself, so that it almost appears as if you have a full 4-inch by 5¼ inch layer, matte layer. And in order to position where I want to cut out this aperture, I'm going to use that copy paper template that I made. And since I already folded that in half, I know the halfway point of my circle. And so I can line that up, position all of my papers, and line them up with my card base. And then I'll just cut the front of my card and my pattern paper at the same time. So this ensures that I'll have perfect placement when I go to adhere my pattern paper to my card base. And if you're using thicker pattern papers than what I've done here, and your die doesn't actually manage to cut all the way through, what you can always do is run it through the one time, and then you can remove the top layer, your pattern paper layer, and then reposition the die, because it will have at least cut through a little bit of your card base, enough so that you can position your die and run it through a second time to complete that cut. Now, with a standard book fold, what you do is you glue down that left-hand side, everything to the left of your score line, and that becomes your standard book fold. Now, with this clever design, what's really awesome is that you have this aperture window here, and I cut that circle that fell out of my card front. I cut it in half so that I can glue this back in, and that way when I glue my pattern paper on top, I have a nice level surface. At the end of the day, I ended up actually gluing down my the other half as well, for the same reason, to have a nice level surface so that I can add additional layers on top of it and not have a big difference in the card base. And that's especially for me important, because here I'm using, these are a really nice quality pattern paper, but I would still class this more as a paper and not a lightweight cardstock. So when I burnish over anything that has an uneven surface, I actually might create additional little indentations and whatnot that are visible. And so to prevent that, I like to try to create a nice level surface. And here's where I decided I want to add that other half of the circle back in. I think when I try this again, what I'll try to do is, instead of fully cutting out the circle, just doing a partial cut where it basically will leave that circle attached, but it will free the right-hand side. So basically only covering my top cutting plate up to, from the right of the circle up to the score line. And so it'll still give me that split window effect, but this circle portion that is part of the card base will stay attached to the card base, and then I'll just glue that down instead of having to put the die cut circle back in. So I think there's multiple different ways that you can achieve the same look and the same effect. So definitely watch Jennifer McGuire's video and see what works best for you. And maybe you'll come up with a different way that works best for you as well. So I found this a lot of fun. It's so innovative because it takes a book fold, fun fold card, but it really kind of takes it up a notch. And what's neat about it is that when you open the card, whatever you put in that circle area, in my case, that mint green area there, it's visible from the front of the card and from the inside of the card. So I think that's super cool because you have your focal image visible, when the card is closed and when the card is open. One thing to bear in mind especially if you're going to do what I'm doing, where I'm attaching some die cut elements to that aperture or that circle. The thing that you want to be a little bit careful about is that you want to make sure, the safest bet will be to make sure that whatever you add to that circle area, that it stays completely confined within the circle. And that way you are certain to still be able to open that flap on the right. The other thing that you want to be careful of is, the main thing you want to be careful of is to not hang anything, over the edges, unless you want it to be partially obstructed. So for example, if I added one of my unicorns here, which I'll show some quick coloring. But if I added one of these unicorns and let's say part of the unicorn stretched, beyond my mint green circle and went a little bit more off to the right, let's say. If that's sitting on top of the right flap, then it's going to prevent me from opening the card. So there's a little bit of that concern. If you attach it so that the flap is closed over anything that is going to stretch beyond the circle, then you'll still be able to open the card. It's just that from the outside, that portion will be hidden. So, and maybe that's what you want. Maybe you want to leave a little bit that's going to be a bit of a surprise. So I think you can use that to your advantage in both directions. So if you place something that is off to the left of the circle, then when the card is open, whatever portion to the left of the circle that is outside the circle will be hidden once you open the card. And again, that might be an effect that you're going for. So you can definitely play around with placing items. The only thing to be careful of is to not place anything outside the circle on the right hand side that's going to sit on top of your the front of your card, because then it's going to prevent you from opening the card. But otherwise, definitely experiment and play with it and see see what effect you like. And that's the beauty of a design like this, because there can be some things that are hidden, but I love the fact that you can see the focal image and the sentiment from both the outside of the card and from the inside of the card. It's just something fun and a little bit unexpected. So these really cute unicorns are from the Alicorn Happiness stamp set by TLC Designs. They are super, super cute, and I think there are 2 other unicorn illustrations in that set. It's a rather large stamp set. I think it's 6 by, it might be 4 by 8, I think. But really wonderful stamp set and lots of sentiments as well. So not only are there some really fun unicorn images, but you get some really awesome sentiments too. Whenever I color in critters, or people characters as well, I like to use a black glaze pen for the dark portion of the eyes, and then I'll use my white gel pen to just put that little kind of specular highlight in, and that seems to really make the critters and characters come to life a little bit more, because the black glaze pen is a little bit glossy, a little shiny, and that white dot just makes the eyes look kind of a little bit reflective and bright, and so it can add a lot of character and bring your characters to life. So here's that stamp set. There's several different unicorns and additional images, as well as a lot of various sentiments too. So really, really fun. And here I'm playing it safe. I didn't want to attach anything outside the circle. Although I think if you're careful, you can definitely make that work and create some really neat effects. But this being the first split window card I've ever made, I wanted to play it safe and just keep everything confined in that circle. And so I've stamped out my sentiments, and I'll attach my unicorn with some low profile foam. So this is just 1mm thick. I love using my low profile foam in most of my card making, because it adds a little bit of dimension without making your card super bulky, and that way it stays an easy mailer as well. So here is a close-up final look at my split window card. Lots of fun and super easy to do. And like I said, next time I do this, I'll try to actually create that split window with some partial die cutting and see if that is going to be easier for me. Thanks so much for joining me. If you like this video, please consider liking, commenting, and sharing. And if you want to catch new videos as I post them, consider subscribing to my channel and ringing the notification bell. Thanks so much. Until next time, happy crafting and have a fantastic day.